if your only thing you're contributing to the internet is sort of your thoughts in words, when you're competing against sort of machines that can produce words at sort of near infinite rate,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's a hard sort of hard to cut through that noise.
As we move into 2025, it's clear that AI is going to be embedded in a lot of how we grow our companies. Today, I want to talk about how it's going to impact content, SEO, and other marketing assets. This episode is all for content marketers out there. So if you're a content marketer listening to this, I think you're going to get a lot of value. My guest to walk us through this is Jon Gilham, founder and CEO of Originality.ai. Welcome to the show, Jon.
Yeah, thanks, Lee. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so as I normally do, ask guests, give us a little of your background, tell us what your company does. I think that's going to be helpful.
Yeah, sure. So my background, so I'm a mechanical engineer by sort of education and trade, and then I was always building sort of online businesses on the side.
Mm-hmm.
One of those turned into sort of a content marketing agency that we ended up exiting. Through that process of exiting that content marketing agency, we had been one of the heaviest users of generative AI pre ChatGPT with tools like Jasper.
Mm-hmm.
Were transparently selling a service that was AI written content, and then struggling with sort of the process of ensuring that the other content was not AI generated by our writers. And that's where we saw the need for originality, which is what the project I'm currently focused on, which is AI detection, plagiarism checking, readability, and fact checking. Basically, everything an editor needs to do,
Mm-hmm.
but doing that with an AI assistant to help them. So that's kind of my background, and then also what kind of led into then seeing the need for originality.
Okay, so I know I'm not the only one that's going to be trying to hang on to this conversation. I mean, I am in content marketing, but I know when it comes to writing, it's ad hooks and and most blog articles, and it's the marketing messaging, right? So it doesn't really matter to whatever degree. I mean, that's a blanket statement, but it doesn't really matter if it's factual in terms of or if it's AI written or not, right? So let break down like for your tool, and I'm here looking at your website. Who is this for? Give us some use cases as in terms of, is this like a very niche thing, or is this like across the board for marketers?
So I think AI detection is not everyone cares if it's AI content or not,
Right.
and so that specific function, there's some sort of limits to who wants to use that. If you're hiring a writer, even if you're okay with them using AI, you're generally not very happy to sort of pay them their rate of $100,000 an article, whatever it might be,
Mm-hmm.
and then to find out that they copied and pasted it out of ChatGPT.
Yeah.
There's sort of a fairness component to that. That
Sure.
if you're unlocking efficiencies through AI, the person doing the purchasing should be the one that's capturing those efficiencies.
Yeah.
And so there's kind of a fairness piece to that. The second piece to that, and I think where this is, where the tool is most used by most content marketers that care about getting traffic from Google, is that there is a significant concern that Google will punish AI generated content.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has become extremely clear that they aggressively punish mass produced AI spam. And then there's a significant spectrum from sort of very clear AI generated spam, bad,
Mm-hmm.
but then the line gets blurrier as you move sort of to higher quality AI human created content.
Yeah.
But if you're on sort of a risk averse content publisher, or even a sort of a risk aware content publisher that wants to get traffic from Google,
Mm-hmm.
it is safer to publish human content than AI generated content. And that's where the majority of our users use us, and specifically the AI detection.
Okay, so give me a couple use cases in terms of, because I know like a research team, academia, like I could see that like
Yeah.
fitting perfectly for a tool like this, but broaden my horizons a little bit. I'm sure it's more, there's more use cases.
Yeah, so user generated content platforms. If I think we're none of us really want to read reviews that were AI generated about baby formula.
Yep, that's true.
That's not a great use case. Book publishing platforms,
Yeah.
where if their content is filled with nothing but AI slop, then the value of their platform declines. So that's a use case that we see.
Okay.
Interview job applications. Was this a truly a human written submission or with answers, or was this AI
Hmm.
generated? What does that mean? Is sort of it's an interesting societal question that I don't have all the answers to right now.
Yeah.
But those are some of the what I'd say is some of the more interesting use cases. Academia is a very obvious use case. We don't like our tool being used within academia because AI detection is highly accurate but not perfect.
Hmm.
And when you're dealing with sort of academic disciplinary action, the level
Mm.
of sort of perfection that you need and
Consequences. Yeah.
provability is very, very high. Whereas with sort of a writer employee employer sort of
Hmm.
relationship, there's a lot more sort of things that you can do to manage that relationship that's different than in sort of a high volume academic setting.
Okay. So if marketers are going to be using your tool, Originality.ai is the site. How would you say that they should think about using it in your typical, content marketer, marketing manager that's working for mid-sized company, um, B2B, B2C even? What does that look like?
Sorry, I lost you there for a minute.
Oh, that's okay. Must have a connectivity. Let me say that again. So for your average content marketer or even marketing manager inside an organization, B2B, B2C, they're creating marketing assets and running campaigns. How should they think about using your tool? Originality.ai is the site.
Yeah, so where the sort of we're on a mission to get to is to be able to that it's sort of irresponsible to hit publish on content that hasn't been run through originality, and so becoming a tool where you can hit publish with integrity because you've run
Mm-hmm.
it through originality, and so that's whether or not you care if it's AI or generated or not. Plagiarism
Mm-hmm.
checking, make sure the content's not plagiarized. Fact checking aid to help editors make sure that the content's factually accurate, hitting the right readability score for your audience, and then the grammar and spell checking. So it's sort of a complete QA/QC tool for content that's going to be published. That's sort of like tactically what how we think of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of conceptually, how we sort of think about it is um, trying to help editors, copy editors, do their job more efficiently with traceability and accuracy. And so, sort of being able to really be that aid to anyone that's acting as a copy editor, so that they can be confident in the work that they're publishing.
Yeah, I like that. We have a philosophy at Signal Media, our agency, where we say that the future is human, augmented with AI, and I think that that's the real point is humans still want to interact with humans. It's all about relationships. And I think when you get to copywriting and content and marketing assets, people want to they want authenticity. And it's natural for the money makers, the capitalists of the world, to take a tool and try to scale it as fast as possible and make money, which is where you get your spam. But I think the pendulum naturally swings back in favor of humans making content for humans, where people are going to be okay with some degree of AI, but I think a lot of people are not. So that's where I see this fitting in, is where there's sort of a tactical piece there for marketers and writers, but I think really just getting back to the integrity of humans communicating with humans is the big piece
Yeah,
there. You tell me.
yeah, for sure. And I think there's a lot of risk. And I think what we're talking about is like that. There's a lot of risk associated with these tools being used,
Hmm.
and then it's ultimately up to sort of the business owner to sort of understand and manage that risk that they're accepting. And so what we sort of another way that we sort of view ourselves is that we're sort of giving the those that ultimately own the risk of whether or not they've published content that has been in different varying degrees used have has had AI used in its creation, they're able to sort of understand what that risk sort of propagating through their website, through their organization looks like.
Yeah. So let's go back to this conversation about what Google thinks, what search thinks about generative AI content. What are the kind of pros and cons of using generative AI content for SEO?
Yeah. Well, I'll sort of like it's a question we think about a ton, and we've done a ton of research on. So I'll try and sort
Yeah.
of like walk through the thought process and sort of along the lines of what Google has said along the way. So
Okay.
sort of Google's come out and said initially AI content is bad. That's sort of their first statement around sort of like when ChatGPT blew up and Google made its first statement, and then they sort of modified that statement to say spam content is bad. However it is created. Um, and they have to face and sort of think about their position on this. They have to thread this really tricky needle where they need to be an AI forward company because that's kind of the future. That's where a lot of their sort of um, enterprise value is coming from. They're potentially facing their own Kodak moment where the technology that they have invented is going to be what ultimately replaces them. And so it's a bit of an existential threat to them. And then on top of that, if so, they need to be this sort of AI forward company, not saying AI bad. So they need to be sort of publicly saying AI
Aligned.
is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
However, if their search results are filled with nothing but AI content, why would anyone go and click through a bunch of
Right.
ads to get to the website? Why wouldn't they just go direct to the AI that would also have more context on the knowledge of the person? So they need to
Exactly.
sort of be this AI forward company while also helping to make sure their content is not AI generated that
Hmm.
that they're presenting. And so, how did they do that? The sort of helpful content update, outsourcing to a large extent their sort of human filter to Reddit, and massively increasing the visibility of Reddit in their search results.
Hmm.
And then last March, they had a significant update, a sort of helpful content update, plus a manual actions. The manual actions attacked a significant number of sites. All those sites that were attacked had a significant percent of their content having been AI generated.
Hmm.
And what I sort of took away from that was that it was to an extent it was a bit of a psyops operation where on the eve of the manual actions they said what they were doing. They publicly went after certain sites and they went on the biggest sort of PR tour that I've ever seen them do associated with an update. And so that all sort of leads to this sort of tricky position that they're in where they need to be this AI forward company about Gemini 2.0 coming out and
Yeah.
how they're integrating AI into their tooling, into their search results, but then also as loudly as possible stomping on a small part of the internet that publishes AI generated content, showing that if you mass publish AI generated content, we will find you and we will punish you.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of like the complex landscape on what they're
That
needing
is.
to navigate. And I think the view that we have that Google does not want AI content overwhelming their search results is checks out and is consistent with both their wording and their actions.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it is super complicated to even try to understand what's going on with what their perspective is, and their actions that are going along with it. Um, so if you are, I mean, you in part are running a company that is producing content, so you have a kind of say about what you're doing for yourself. So if you put that yourself in a content marketer's shoes, what kind of roadmap would you give them at the moment and maybe foreseeable future for how to publish good content for SEO that is trying to abide by this complex landscape?
Yeah, I think so. So I've been sort of a tech SaaS entrepreneur for the last time than I've been a sort of content marketer, which has been sort of the better part of two decades.
Yeah.
And seen a lot sort of from Google. Uh, my sort of current approach to content marketing, which is working quite well at sort of Originality, where we're getting over a million visitors a month from organic.
Yeah.
And that approach is sort of a philosophy of saying going beyond words. And so if your only thing you're contributing to the internet is sort of your thoughts in words, when you're competing against sort of machines that can produce words at sort of near infinite rate,
Hmm.
um, it's a hard to cut through that noise. We all bring sort of human experience and can do it. I prefer to play with a spreadsheet than play with words. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I can't do it as well as some others.
Yeah.
And so that's where we really think about what's the how can we go beyond words to add value to the users. And so whether that is a a tool, a calculator, a resource, unique data, kind of all things that we're doing ourselves that is working right now for our content, for our own content strategy.
Okay, yeah, that's helpful. I think that sort of expands the thinking for content marketers. I think that is really should be part of their kind of playbook as well, thinking beyond text for people finding you and capturing that person. So I think that's really something they really always should be thinking about. But now they're kind of, from what I understand, they're kind of being forced into thinking about outside of text. What are some other ways that you are maybe deploying yourself, but also would advise for content marketers to, I don't know, what have you seen that's working?
Yeah. So tools definitely is working well. Research, unique research, unique data. You LLMs can only produce the knowledge that they have.
Yeah.
If you can sort of contribute net new knowledge to the world in the form of unique research, that can go a long way in
Yes.
terms of both from sort of that own content, your own content piece
Mm-hmm.
being defensible against sort of LLM produced content or people going to an LLM to get that information,
Yeah.
and has a ton of benefits from a digital PR and getting kind of backlinks and visibility. And so the sort of unique research, unique studies has another sort of opportunity that I think seems to be something that will stand up to sort of this AI generated world for a reasonable length of time, because it's going to be very hard for I don't see the path where LLMs will be able to sort of do that
Sustain.
net new research that
Yeah.
will then contribute it. So I think that's a big opportunity right now that will be sustainable as well, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny when you say it. It's not an original idea, but it sounds like such a unique idea that what you're talking about is LLMs who operate off existing data blocks. They can't really create new data. It's going to be a diluted form of the current data they're looking at. So what it's done in effect, and and I'm just really kind of coming to this as you're saying it, that for content marketers is such an amazing opportunity to create new data,
Yeah.
not only from a brand, there's all the things that you want your content to do, but to feed the LLMs that will then put you in front of, more of a massive market. That's such a cool way of thinking about content. I mean, it's like, hey, you could stick with words, you can go beyond words, you can create new data that will then be utilized through the pipeline. I
Yeah.
like that a lot. That's hitting me kind of sideways.
Yeah. Fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's been something that I mean, for so long, it was just this sort of like machine. Like when I thought about content marketing, it was just this
Yeah.
machine of like keyword words, kind of like think about the intent a bit, and
Yeah.
just like my sort of thought process around the algorithm versus the audience was like
Yeah.
90%, 10%,
Yeah.
regrettably. And
Yeah.
now I think that's totally shifted to sort of like 90% audience, 10% algorithm. I don't want to ignore that because I still want to kind of rank and get the traffic.
Yeah.
But I think the more that we can focus on, how we can sort of deliver value to the audience and think about our competition. And now not just the competition isn't just the top 10 search results. The competition is LLMs as well. They can go get the answer from. And so what can we do that differentiates ourselves both from the
Yeah.
competitors in search results and from the alternative location for them to get the answer to their query, which is LLMs right now.
Yeah, this has really opened my mind. I appreciate this conversation because it's really put words to the sort of things that have been floating around in my head disconnected. And it's like what you're saying is content marketers, but marketers in general, people that are building things that want to get found, they need to become creators again, because as we become creators, we are the problem with where we've been in such a short period of time actually is that the value of creating has been diluted. The labor of creating has been diluted because we wanted to mass scale creation because we saw it was possible. And so it's what's the value in creating something, manually typing something out, or, doing that original research when you could just go get it in 5 seconds. But what the way that you're posing it is that there is an immense value in and of itself, but even additionally, because the LLMs need it to survive in the future, or to be sustainable and more, purposeful. This is really resonating with me because with our agency, we help founder CEOs create podcasts and video content for the sake of driving growth, and it's very relationship driven. So, we're helping our clients take podcasts and utilize them as a mechanism for building relationships with key partners, prospects, and people in an ecosystem. And the way I see it playing out, it plays directly into what you're saying. You've just, I think, are been able to articulate it well. Is like you build an ecosystem of thought leaders, experts, partnerships, etc., and then you mobilize that network of people to create new content that's actual, fresh, new content, both from their words, from their text, for whatever it may be, video. And then that becomes, a utility for the LLM, essentially, which kind of even opens my mind to what those LLMs could look like, more in a private setting or even a more niche setting, contextually. But that gets back to the true nature of content marketing, which is what all that is creating.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's yeah. No, well said.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's blowing my mind. Actually, I mean, I did not
Yeah.
see this conversation going there. That's really cool.
Yeah. No, I think it's going to be. It's also. I think it's a. There's a. Personally, I'm finding it also more fun. From a standpoint of like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just this. It doesn't need to be just this treadmill of production.
Yeah.
But it can be this sort of you creative thought into where is there where's there a product or a research or a tool that is different than what is out there right now that
Mm-hmm.
that will and so I think will provide value to the searchers
Yeah.
and solve the searcher's intent. And I think that's been a more creative way to be looking at things and more fun to be sort of thinking through the strategy
Mm-hmm.
than sort of mass exporting a list of keywords and then working through them one at a time.
100%. Yeah. I think that the notion of being more human, or trying to scale your company, or even not scale your company in the path of being more human first, is going to have so much more merit and value as this pendulum starts to swing back from scale of AI content. It'll be really interesting. And maybe that's a question for you: is where do you see all this going? I mean, if we look out there, everything's very still much Wild West, I think, to most extent. Where do you see AI content becoming powerful and purposeful and losing value in the market?
Yeah. So I think what sort of will sort of color my answer is that if we look at LLMs over the last sort of launched in 2020, wildly popular 2022, been on a pretty impressive sort of adoption curve 22 to now.
Mm-hmm.
But what we've seen is that sort of our detection capabilities have been closing faster than the improvement rate of LLMs. And what we're seeing is a sort of plateauing of large language models and this closing of a gap around detection. And so what that sort of says to us, and all new models that come out seem to be similar in terms of detection capabilities. And so when you sort of take a step back and look at how are these LLM built, same data, so the internet being consumed on the same NVIDIA chips with the same sort of transformer training technology architecture. And so the output they fiddle with the sort of the safety and the weights and biases, but the output all has a lot of similarities. And so the I think this could age poorly, but where do I see it going? I see this sort of plateauing of foundational model performance. Just like they're fighting for every little incremental gain that they can get right
Yeah.
now, as opposed to the leaps that they were previously achieving.
Right.
And we're seeing it now permeate all parts of products. And so whether it's in your phone, whether it's on summary from this podcast, and so I think what we're seeing is the sort of proliferation of its adoption across a whole bunch of different types of ways of using it. And so before it was like, here's the window, here's the output of text. And now it's like, no, it's natively inside, a podcast where you can then search back to what you were wanting to look at. So how does that impact marketers? I think like every industry, it will increase efficiency. If used correctly, it can make research really easy. It can give you ideas on different titles, different whatever you're sort of wherever you're getting stuck, and then it can help with sort of every step of your process. And then it's up to the human in the loop to figure out how can they contribute value and it not just be a copy paste. Even if you use your own words, how can it not just be a copy paste out of the AI tool, but how can you have gone in and contributed your own thoughts that have brought something new to sort of the state of human knowledge that the LLM was reflecting.
Yeah. 100% agree. If you have this audience of content marketers, what else do you want to say to them in relation to what we're talking about or your product? What do you think that would be valuable for them to know about all of this?
Yeah, I think it's a fun time to be in this space, and I think it's one that I think AI obviously is here to stay. AI detection similarly. Happy to answer any questions that anyone might have. We are certainly at Originality a known as an AI detection company, but are continuing to sort of expand the product to be a complete suite for copy editors. So anybody that receives text from someone and needs to make sure it meets certain standards, plagiarism, fact checking, readability, we're building we have all of that already built and have some really exciting features around editorial guideline compliance coming. So yeah, happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
That's great. Yeah. Looks like a great tool. I can't wait to start using it. And if we want to send people your way, where do we send them?
Yeah, Originality.ai, or you can contact me there, JON@Originality.ai, or find me on LinkedIn.
Great. Thanks, Jon. This has been great.
All right. Thanks, Lee.